The Powers Project.
Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Pretty good, except for having been stuck in the worst traffic I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, well, that's Orlando. We're quickly becoming LA. I mean, I'm joking. It's not even close. I know. It's not even close. So I'm glad you guys joined me tonight, even though thank you for braving the traffic and coming through that, because I know that can be a pain, especially when you're at a dead stop on a major highway and can't do anything about it except sit there. So
That's I-4.
yes, it is. And until the construction's done, which will probably be never.
Yeah, well, when they're getting finished with it, it'll be starting it back over again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So the reason I wanted to do this podcast with you guys is because we have three generations of gay men sitting here who had probably three very different experiences coming out of the closet. I wanted to get a Gen Z, but you can't get them off the couch. I'm joking. I didn't know any Gen Zs. I know Grayson Lang. I should have gotten him, but I wouldn't know how to do the Zoom meeting along with us. So maybe next time when he's in town. So.
There's got to be a way to do it. Oh, we could project him on the big screen.
Oh, we could have. Yeah. That would have been a good idea. Yeah. I'll have to think about that next time.
Yeah, next time.
But one of the things I wanted to do is to let people know what it was like for baby boomers, for Gen X, and for the millennials, and what it was like, what we had in common when we were coming out, and what was different from our coming out. You look like you're so tired. I'm so, I feel so bad that you came over here tonight.
No, don't feel bad.
So what I want to do is have each one of us tell our stories. Let's talk about our stories, and don't feel bad about it. If I say something you want to chime in, please feel free to chime in, and let's just as if the three of us, because we are friends, let's just pretend we're at lunch or dinner or whatever, and we're just shooting the shit and telling our stories. So okay, so we'll go with if we go with age before beauty. But what happens when you have both? No, we'll let beauty go first. So Robbie, why don't you? So you're a millennial. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us what your experience was coming out?
Well, it was different amongst my friends versus my family. Friends, it was fairly easy. Like, I mean, talking to people that are in my own generation, my own peers, that wasn't something that ever, I guess, really fazed any of us. So, I mean, that part was really easy. My mom was the hard part. Like, it was weird because she would say that she'd be cool with it, but then she wasn't entirely cool with it, and that came out within an hour after I did. So
that was quick.
Yeah.
Usually they can hold it in a little longer.
Yeah, it was pretty quick, and things escalated pretty quickly there. We got into a huge fight. She ended up kicking me out of the house for a period of time.
She's a baby boomer, or
1950s?
Yeah, she's a boomer. Yeah. She's a boomer. Is
that still boomer?
Yeah, boomers were like to the early 60s. Like it depends who you ask, but anywhere between 60 to 63, I think they still consider a boomer.
Yeah. Your mother's older than mine.
Yeah, my mom's 63 now. She's 63.
My mom was born in 59.
Oh, we could date because your mom's still older than me. No, that never was a rule. I was oftentimes older than the person's parents, so it didn't matter. So, is she a religious person?
No, she. That's the weird thing about it. She's never really been much of a religious person. Kind of. I mean, she did grow up in a Catholic background. But I mean, we never really went to church on a regular basis. For the majority of the time that I was growing up, we never really did that. So, I mean, I can't really say that she was like super religious, like fanatic religious. But I don't know what her connection with it was. I think she was dealing with a lot of other things at the time that were just now looking back on it with the explanation that I got from her, it makes a little bit more sense. I'm not saying it was right, but I'm saying I gained a little bit of an understanding after kind of learning what she was going through at the time. Yeah, overall, I think.
So, do you think that because sometimes people say, "Well, like they'll sit there and go, "Oh, mom, dad, I'm gay," and they're like, "Duh," So, did your mom have any inkling or any that you might be gay? Or
She probably did. I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, we never talked about it. But
it was still a shock to her when you actually came out, or would that be an appropriate word, shock, or was it just?
I don't know if shock would be the word, or if it would just be like she she basically threw a hissy fit. I mean, that's really what it was. That's really what it came down to.
Like,
it was,
you're not going to be gay.
For some,
I forbid it.
Yeah, not really that she forbid. She didn't go that far, but she didn't want. I don't know where she was coming from. I don't know like what was going on up there for her. But are you familiar with PMDD?
No, that's a new one on me.
It's like really severe PMS. Like it causes dysphoria, and she was suffering with that at the time, and I didn't know that.
Right.
Okay, her doctor had just like maybe diagnosed her with that like a short time before, but I didn't know that then. So and now knowing that, I kind of realize why she went a little bit off the deep end. I'm not saying it's excusable. It's not. And our relationship really hasn't been entirely the same since then. And she knows that. And honestly, I think she's the one that has to deal with that more than I do.
So, okay. So I don't know where I get all these misconceptions about you, I swear. Because for some reason, I thought your mom was very supportive of you.
She is now. And see, that's the thing. Is like now, and that's what I'm really starting to come to accept is that she has come a long way. So she really has come a long way in the time that, since the time that I came out at first. And that's what I'm slowly learning to deal with and using that to kind of like, I'm trying to put that in my mind so I can forgive her a little bit more. Because that's a tough thing to forgive, but. Did
she throw you out of the house or anything, or just?
Oh yeah.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Okay, so when this happened, where did you go? What did you do? Because your father, as far as I know, I've never heard you speak of him.
He hasn't been in the picture. See, yeah, he hasn't been a part of my life really ever. I think the last time I actually saw him in person, I was about 13 years old. Didn't recognize him when I opened the door, and saw him for probably about a week there, and then he just like disappeared back out of my life again, which you don't miss what you don't have, and he's never been something that I've had in my life, so he's not someone that I really miss.
So when you got kicked out, where did you go?
A friend of mine from high school, she was able to help me find a place to stay temporarily, for a period of time, that and until I could convince my mother, to let me back there.
How long was that?
That I was out of the house?
Yeah.
It wasn't very long. I think it might have been less than a week, but still, I mean, that really drove me to get the hell out of her house as fast as possible. And
so to this day, you still harbor some hard feelings? Would that be?
Yeah. It is. It's very appropriate. I still have some hard feelings, but I'm probably dealing with them a lot better now than I have been in the past. So it's not something that's an easy fix. And I think my mom damaged our relationship. She threw a huge wrench into the relationship that we had, and I think she knows that now, and she has done a lot to change, and she's very supportive. But yeah, it was a rough beginning on the family end for my coming out.
And you're an only child as well, so you didn't have siblings or anyone to support you or to talk to, or
right. And maybe that was part of the problem that was going on in her head, realizing that her only child is not going to give her grandchildren. Not that I was anyway, I fucking hate kids. But, even still, I think that might have been part of her problem, is like she's seeing something that she wanted in the future that was kind of taken away from her. And she was kind of going off the deep end about it, but not thinking that this is my life and I'm the one that has to live it happy.
So, you for my listeners and viewers who saw you on the earlier podcast when we were talking about millennials, to me that just shows just what a remarkable person you are, because here's something that you've gone through, and then still to be able to accomplish all the things that you accomplish, and putting yourself through school and buying your own house and all these things that you did on your own, and you didn't have a father, and your mother, while she supports you now, wasn't probably a big help back when you could have used her the most, to help you out. And so it's a credit to your characters. And if you can say something good about your mom, is that that character came from her, I'm sure. Yeah. And
I have to say, she's come a long way. She really has come a long way from that point. That was a rough patch, but I have to give credit where it's due too. So she's and I think she's doing better now and she realizes that she was pretty messed up then too. So.
Right. Well, and that's great. I mean, so because of that, because of her, her self-actualization that, hey, maybe I didn't handle this in the best way. He is my son. I love my son. And regardless of what my beliefs are, how I feel, I love him and I'm going to be there for him. Do you see that as being a way to get past all of this and forgive her one day completely?
I'm trying. It's, it's kind of one of those things you have to take it like one step at a time, and I think about it often. And I think to be completely honest, this is the first time I've talked so openly about this. So I've
really?
Not, yeah. I waited till the cameras were around. I want to be able to completely forgive her one day, and now I'm slowly letting go of all of the anger that I've had, and I had a lot of anger towards her for a very long time. And our relationship hasn't been the same since then.
Did you ever feel the need to hide? Like when you came out, did it seem natural to you to to just come out? Like how old were you when you came out? At what age?
18 or 19 because that's when I actually realized it for sure myself. So that's.
Is that the first time you met me? No.
I didn't meet you for
color me not surprised
later.
I had that effect on guys. Joking. I couldn't help it. Anyway, so when you came out, did she give you the kind of response that you expected from her, or did it kind of take you by surprise that she acted that way?
I didn't know what to expect. I mean, she had been unpredictable in the past, but I figured that was going to go one of two ways. I guess I really didn't expect it to go to the extreme that it went to. That's the part that really got me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But as you said with your friends, because this is something that, that had been out there. And so people had plenty of time to learn to accept people who were coming out of the closet and stuff. So your friends were much more understanding and supportive. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, my peers were, you think of my peers as more people in my generation who just, we are more accepting of that. We don't look at that so much as an issue.
Right.
That's, and I think that maybe it was a generational thing for her too. I don't know. I think the bigger issue was her not getting grandchildren, probably. But
that seems to be a common theme. So, and I need to make sure that I let everybody know. Obviously, this is your personal coming out story.
Right.
And so you don't represent all millennials and their coming out stories.
Absolutely not. No, this is my personal story.
You don't represent all Gen X. I don't represent all baby boomers. Everybody has their own different experiences. But what I've seen is that from our different generations, how we came out, how we reacted to things, and what made us come out. There's a generalization for each age group, and it doesn't encompass everybody, of course. But for a big majority of us, these are similar experiences. There might be some different nuances here and there, but these are the similar experiences that we all had with these generations. So, anything else you'd like to add?
Overall, I mean, that was my experience with coming out.
So, would you say overall it was positive?
At first it wasn't. Now, overall, yes, I would say that in the end it became a more positive experience, and I'm glad that I didn't stay. I know there's guys that have stayed in the closet for a long period of time, and I'm glad I didn't stay in. I'm glad I was able to come out when I did, because it really, for me, it helped me grow as a person, and I learned a lot about myself.
Well, I want to relay this story because the whole reason why we're having this podcast is because before we did the Millennial one, you and I sat down and talked a little bit, and we kind of went off on a tangent here before we even started recording. And I said, I think this is an important topic that could help a lot of people out there, because as you had said that, and I relayed the story to you about this gentleman who I knew who was 65 years old, and he refused to come out because his mother was still alive. She was in her 80s, and I had just come out, and I remember feeling the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders, and I wanted that for him because he was such a nice guy, and I felt bad for him. And he said, "I don't care." He goes, "I'll never come out as long as she's alive." Well, he died of a heart attack that year, and his mother outlived him. So he was just a miserable. When I say miserable, like, he never got to be who he was. He never got to live his life the way he wanted to live it. He never got to find true love because he couldn't be who he was. And and that's a sad existence for anybody. And for society to sit there and try to wash their hands clean of this as if they don't have some sort of culpability with this. If religions who sit there and do the same thing try to just pretend that it's not on them, I'm sorry, but you're fooling yourself, just to make yourself feel better. So, Cary, the Gen X guy. So tell us your story.
Surprisingly, it's very interesting to hear from somebody who's younger, because mine is actually fairly similar.
It is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was 16 when I decided that I was going to come out to my mom. And at the time, I had no friends that knew. I'm from the Midwest, so it's very difficult.
Whereabouts?
I'm from Indiana.
Okay.
So, and I'm from a small town. So, when at the time, I had finally come to the realization of what I was, and I knew that I wanted to find out more about it, because all I had in my head was all the negative stuff that people said about gay people all the time, or all the horrible, like when people would call somebody a fag or somebody anything like that. I was like, so if this is what I am, I need to find out more. So I was like going to the library and like checking out books, and because we didn't really have the internet yet, it had just was just starting. We had like AOL dial-up, but it was really expensive.
So this was like the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd have to go to the library and look through the card catalog and find books about being gay and stuff, and I was reading those. I ended up writing to an author of one of the books, and we ended up becoming pen pals in a way, and he was like really very supportive and very helpful to me, and he helped me find PFLAG in Indiana. There was only one chapter of PFLAG at the time in Indiana, and it was like an hour and a half away from my hometown.
Oh, wow.
and I had just learned how to drive. And I would make up stories as to where I was going, and I would drive over to Seymour, Indiana, and praying to God that my car didn't break down or anything, to go to PFLAG. So I had been doing this and like getting all this information, and I was starting to feel like I needed to tell somebody, because I didn't really have anybody that I could tell. But me and my mother, when I was from like birth to like 8 years old, it was just me and my mom, pretty much. Me and my mom and my grandmother at times. My father was not in the picture. He was kind of in and out. But like you said, you don't miss what you don't have. And so I got her alone one day, and I decided that I was going to tell her. And like you also had, my mother was very quiet, and she hugged me. But then about an hour later, she got very distant, and we did not talk about it after that. About a month later, my stepbrother got into a lot of trouble because I don't know if I can share that.
You can share it.
He was selling pages of Playboy magazine at school.
An entrepreneur.
Okay. I ain't mad at him.
And so when he got caught, he had to like blame it on somebody. So he said that he stole it from me. So
you took the blame for it.
So their mom called my stepfather, and my stepfather searched my room when I was at school, and he found letters to PFLAG, letters to my friend, Advocate magazine, and he called all those people, and he threatened all of them and told them never ever to speak to me again. And my parents left it at that. But I was, my friend who wrote for the Advocate, he called me up. And he's like, Cary, I can only speak to you for a very short time, but like your stepfather actually contacted me today, and you need to realize your parents know. And this went from like me being at school one day in high school to like I just sunk, and I was 17 at the time. And like an hour later, I was furious. And I went, and I've never said this before, but I went to my parents' room, and I found that goddamn letter that they took to contact my friend, and because I felt violated. And when my parents got home, I unleashed on them and told them that I was gay. And I thought I was going to have my mother's back, and I didn't. And she kicked me out. And so I started walking out of town. I grabbed my wallet, and I made it to the edge of town. I had no clue where I was going. I remember which direction I was walking, but I don't know why. And my stepfather, surprisingly, came and picked me up and told me to get in the car. And this is where I have a lot of respect for my stepfather. My stepfather, he has always kind of instilled in us, and he's kind of a redneck, but he's always instilled in us.
Kind of.
Yeah, no, he really is. But he's always instilled in us that you don't give up on family. And so he said, we're not going to kick you out, but there are some rules. And he, in his defense, he doesn't know how it worked or how it is or how it worked or anything. He just didn't want this to be an issue anymore. So he told me I was not going to speak of being gay anymore. And that I had to see a psychiatrist, and I was grounded for the rest of high school. All I could do was go to work, go to school, come home. It became, a lot of things happened that kind of eased what was going on at the time, but it ended up being, I was afraid to leave because I was afraid I wouldn't get to go to college. And looking back, I could have probably left because I paid for college myself. I'm still paying for college myself to this day. So it's kind of ridiculous, the fear that I had at the time, because they really didn't have as much power over me as I think they thought they had. I'm trying to think.
What kind of support, or what kind of backlash did you have from your siblings?
My siblings were not home at the time. They were because my stepbrother, who's younger, I'm the oldest of what, 5 kids, I think. I always forget. I have 3 step siblings and my
Yes.
sister. So yeah, I'm the oldest of 5. So and I'm not very close to my step siblings, but my eldest stepbrother, who's like 6 months younger than me, I think he was still at school, and the other 2 were at their mothers. Unbeknownst to me, my youngest sister, who is 10 years younger than me, was in the living room the entire time this happened. And so I feel that she's almost scarred by it as well, because she has her own story of how it affected her. And we, as a credit, I guess, as horrible as that situation was for her, I mean, she was like, what,
8?
like 7 or 8.
Or yeah, 7.
We are extremely close, and she's always been my biggest supporter, and I love my sister to death. But at the time, I mean, she was so young, she couldn't be that for me at the time. And so, like, where you were saying you had a lot of anger, like, towards your mother, I've held a lot of that anger for my mother for many years, because I felt that when the chips were down, she wasn't there. And this is from somebody who, like, when we were when I was a kid, it was just me and her. And I felt like that's how we were. Like, we were very, very close. But after that, I've never felt that way about my mother ever again.
So where's your relationship with your mother, your stepfather now? Do you think?
Better, but I don't know, because it's like I can openly talk about it now whenever I go home or whatever, and I do, and I do not hide my life. It is what it is. I mean, they met one of my partners. They acted like they didn't know it at the time, but
you can talk about it. It's fine.
So, God, when was that? I was in my mid-20s.
When you're hot. No.
Oh my God, such a jerk.
No.
So Kurt and I at that time were together as a couple, and so I brought him home for Thanksgiving one year. And like, my stepfather was like really cool with him. Like, it was like strange and weird, and my mom was kind of standoffish about it. But then after I left, my stepfather acted like, what? Cary's gay? And he was like all angry again. And it came down to, like, he thought that because I had gone to I went to like 3 different psychiatrists in that time that I was at home in high school. Because they got mad, like, the first 2 times, because they weren't curing me. Thank God my parents didn't know anything about conversion therapy or anything. And my parents, in my life, they weren't religious either. Like, we never went to church.
I was going to ask you that too.
Yeah, we went to church like when they wanted to get us out of the house in the summertime, they'd send us to vacation Bible school at the Lutheran church or whatever. And that was the only like religion that I ever had.
Which is probably about 70% of them out there or more. It's like, oh yeah, we're Christians. So yeah, when's the last time you've been inside of a church?
Yeah.
Oh, when my sister got married. Yeah, it's like.
But the funny thing is, my mom was raised extremely religious. She went to before high school, she went to a religious school, all the way from kindergarten up through like middle school or whatever.
Well, it just goes to show that, when kids are indoctrinated into religions, that this, they learn these lessons, they learn these, teachings. And so whether they ever go back to church or not, they have this in their subconscious mind as a belief system. So if you're taught that, homosexuality is an abomination, or, that's the one they usually go to.
Yeah.
Because they say
1822. Yeah.
right. They tend to forget about the ones that pertain to them, just the ones that don't pertain to them. They're willing to point their finger at you about that. And so even though they haven't been to church in years, or unless they only go on Christmas and Easter, those are two of the holidays they normally will, get gussied up for and head down to the local chapel or whatever. But those teachings have been taught to them since they were a kid, and they still believed them, and they have never challenged them. And so, when they're faced with something like this, they automatically revert back to what they've learned, and they've never thought about it because it was never a reason to.
I will say that my mom never brought up like I'm afraid you're going to hell or anything. My mom never went there. She did bring up though that she thought that I would die of AIDS. And that was her biggest fear.
So how's your relationship with your sister? Do you still have a really good relationship with her too?
Yeah, extremely close. We talk almost daily.
Oh, good. Well,
yeah.
that's good to have some family, since.
Yeah. And I'm actually very, very close to my grandmother. My mom's mother has been extremely good about it, and she's a very religious woman, but she's like very good with me about it. I think for her, it's like, I don't think she completely understands it, but she doesn't sit there and judge me for it or think that I'm a less or different person for it. She still treats me like the same person that she's always treated me, and I respect that. And I'm not saying that I have like a horrible relationship with my mother or anything. We get along, I think, really well. Unfortunately, I just hold back a lot because I feel like I've been hurt and there was never a resolution. And believe me, and I've been to therapy over it and everything, and they've told me, Cary, you can't continue to hold on to this hatred because it's one way, because most likely your mother's not thinking about this, so you're the only one that's hurting, and you just hurt yourself by doing it. And that makes so much sense.
It makes a lot of sense, but it still doesn't make it any easier. It's still difficult.
Yeah.
I can tell you from having dealt with his, being in a relationship with him and having dealt with this to some extent, what I see is that while your mother gets along with you and she's making, I think, a concerted effort to make things better, I think one of the things that you've always kind of I don't want to say you're upset about, but you don't appreciate, it's like when she'll ask about your siblings and their relationships and like, oh, who are you dating? She never asked you those questions. And she never wanted to know because she didn't want to hear you talk about it.
Well, it's funny because my mom is kind of changing in that respect, and that I do appreciate. And that is all thanks to my youngest sister. Honestly, Tiffany is fearless, and I don't. I guess I can, just say her name. Yeah. She is. She's fearless, and she has no problem telling mom and dad like how it is, and I wish I was as fearless as her because she's amazing, and she just like she'll be like, so mom, I heard Carrie's dating somebody or whatever, and oh really, and so she'll tell her this information, and I think my mom sees this relationship between me and her, and I think she wants us to be there again, and I think that's true. I think I feel it inside that my mom wants us to be there again. It's there's just a lot in between. There's like all this stuff between us, and we're different people now than we were then.
Well, one of the things I would say to both of you is that, I'm a big believer in judging people by who they are now and not who they used to be, because that speaks volumes. So when people are willing to do everything they can to make amends and to be different, I give them the chance. And I want to, because I want that for them. Because I don't like ending relationships unless it's absolutely necessary. In my case, I find nobody ever wants to mend the relationship, so they're not trying to be better or do better. They just like, oh well, and I'm like, oh well, and so that's the end of it. So in both of your cases where your moms are going out of their way, I would look at them as to who they are today. We all make mistakes. We all fuck up. We all do stupid shit. And I know I don't want to be judged to who I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't even want to be judged for who I was last year, because I know that I'm not the same person I was even a year ago. So when we put things in the context of where your mothers came from, and and they can see, well, I didn't handle that as well as I probably should have and could have. The fact that they're going out of their way is saying a lot about them. And so I personally don't have that story to tell, but in same way with your stepdad, it's like, your stepdad's he's a how can I put it? He's sort of an anomaly, because I like the guy because I get along with redneck type people that I grew up with them. I mean, my family is basically redneck, and we're the kind that you have cookouts, you have things that he hates, like potato salad and all that good stuff. I love that stuff, baked beans, all that good stuff. But when we went up for that Thanksgiving, his dad acted like I was his best friend, and because I'm a guy's guy, and Cary will always make fun about how straight guys always, want to talk to me and stuff. And because I understand them and I get along with them, because that's who I was my whole life. That, I was the guy who shot pool, who arm wrestled, who threw darts, who, I threw football. It's like I did everything. I did everything that straight guys think are the manly man things, and and I excelled at those. And so they've always gravitated towards me, and his father was no different. So it was funny, after we actually were in the same bed together in his house, and he pretended like he didn't know that we weren't that we were boyfriends, and he was pretending like I didn't know that. It's like, come on now. Even you, the dumbest redneck could figure that one out. And I go, and you're not a dumb man. He's not a dumb person, but he didn't want to admit to himself that that's what Cary and I were. And so he wanted to act surprised after we had left and after the fact. And so again, I give him credit because he's the one who stepped up to help Cary out when Cary left. And so it's sort of strange. Like
Mike's always been that he's such a strange anomaly in my life, because like not having a father figure and my mom remarrying at 8 years old, I openly like accepted him as my father immediately. And I to this day, Mike is my father. And is he the perfect father? No. But
Is there a perfect father?
I don't know if there is.
No, I don't think there is.
But he is a good person. And do we agree about a lot of things? Not really. Politics, a bunch of different things. We just don't agree or see the same way. But he doesn't like turn on you for it.
Right.
Like he's still my dad. He tells silly jokes and and he's completely redneck, and they have a kegerator at home. It's like,
what's that?
A kegerator?
What's a kegerator?
It's a refrigerator that they've turned into like they put like a nozzle on the outside of it, and you put the keg inside.
It's exactly what it sounds like.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
Yeah. So when I go home to visit my family,
I didn't realize it was like labradoodle, like that kind of wordplay.
So yeah, like they show me their guns when I go home. It's so strange, but it is my family, even though I'm completely unlike anybody else. But it's
strange because like his mother and I have a I think the relationship between her and I, it's very minimal, but it's certainly cordial. And and I don't harbor any hard feelings against her, and I hope she does. I don't think she does towards me. His grandmother the same way, but his grandmother, it was funny because her and I went and got beers together one time when he was working, and
she always asks about
right.
it.
I always enjoyed hanging out with her. I think that she was a little disappointed that I wasn't the redheaded girl that that she foresaw him to be with, to have grandchildren with, and I think that was part of it. But but she's always been very kind to me and always been
there was a lot of upset about not having grandchildren, especially me being the oldest. But me having so many step siblings. Everybody else is taking care of that.
There's a lot of other options.
They have so many kids now. It's like, I'm like uncle to like 10 children. It's ridiculous. And I don't really like children a lot.
Right? Like,
I get along with them.
It's a lot of presents to be given out for like Christmas.
We don't even do it because there's just too many of them.
You go bankrupt doing that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're the one that popped them out. You buy them presents. Did you ever have a father figure that came into your life at any point?
So my mom remarried when I think I was 15 years old. No, 14 or 15. She remarried to my stepdad, who it's just ignore that whole relationship there, okay? Just we're just gonna pretend that one never just even happened. As I'm sure my mother at this point would like to pretend that one never happened.
So she's no longer with the guy.
No, in fact, they just got divorced fairly recently. Oh my gosh, I wanted to be the notary that stamped those papers, but it was during a lapse in my commission, so...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she had to get a different notary to stamp the papers, but it's pretty official now, so...
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So, but yeah, he was... I had a stepdad for a little bit there.
So, he wasn't there when you came out, though, or was he?
Not really. I think she kicked him out of the house by the time I was graduating. So I was graduating high school, and that was my graduation present. She kicked him out.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. It really wasn't for me, but I'll accept it as a graduation gift.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I've probably got myself in more trouble already.
It's like you and me both. And I do have something because something you said about like forgiving, and you're right. Like, I mean, it's a lot to, it's a lot that each of us are probably holding on to concerning what but and it's hard to let go.
Well.
It's something that's just going to take a long time. It's just going to take it's a slow process, but I think the more I think about it and the more I think about how, she's changed, she's grown as a person, the easier it becomes, I think. And it'll take some time, but we'll get there, I think.
I think a lot of it for me is that a lot of my feelings of not feeling worthy of love or a relationship stem from that, because I'm like, well, my own mother can't love me. How can somebody else love me? And so I think I fought through that for a long time in my life, and as I've gotten older, I think it's gotten better. But some things I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I hold on to it too much. So,
Well, as I relay my story to you, I'm going to come back around to something that you said as I get to the end of it, to hopefully bring it together for you guys. So, obviously, I didn't come out till much later, which was very commonplace for guys my age, because we grew up in a time where it wasn't accepted. There was no will and grace. There was no gay anything. The only time we ever heard about gay was we always heard that Elton John was gay, David Bowie was gay, Mick Jagger was, everybody was gay who was in the entertainment world. So, Freddie Mercury. So we didn't know who was really gay or not. It was always rumored all of these people were gay, So, and everyone that they said was gay, I didn't relate to. I was like, that's not who I am. That's not me. And so there were no role models to speak of that were out of the closet that I could look up to. And because at that time you just didn't come out. And especially if you were any type of athlete, if you were any type of entertainer, that would kill your career, and even to this day, we see with Sam, the football player, what was his name? Sam.
I know who you're talking about, but sports ball and memes.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe I can't remember his name right off bat. But you could see even a few years ago, he comes out of the closet, and there's no way they're going to tell me that didn't hurt him from getting picked up. I know it did.
I think in sports, though, it just continues to be that way.
Well, until what's going to happen is that we look at Bob Paris. Bob Paris was one of the most beautiful men to ever step on the Mr. Olympia stage, and when he came out of the closet, he was basically ostracized. And he came out. He was the first male professional athlete to come out while he was participating in sport, and he paid the price for it. And it's extremely unfortunate, And that was, like I said, 30 years, over 30 years ago now. It's almost 31 years ago when he came out, and I don't know that in sports it's gotten much better. The only way it's going to get better is through individual sports, I think. First, you're going to have a UFC fighter or somebody like that who comes out where you don't have to depend on a team to be part of the game, and I think when that happens, that you'll start seeing the other sports pick up, and it's going to have to be a manly sport. It can't be tennis, it can't be golf. It's going to have to be one of the manly sports before football and baseball pick up the slack there in basketball.
But if we're looking at it like that, though, I mean, there's plenty of women that have been successful in sports who are
but that's right. But that's fine because straight men accept lesbians. We know that. That they sit there and just fantasize about that whole, being in the middle of two hot lesbians. So it's
kind of a double standard,
right?
That
it's okay to be gay if you're female. Then at least to straight guys. So I didn't have that to look up to, and the people who I heard were gay, I didn't relate to in any way, shape, or form. And there was a time where, I know as ridiculous as it sounds, is that I truly thought I was the only gay person, at least in my city, if not the state, if not the country. I mean, I really believed that because I didn't know anybody who was gay. And I remember, because of my family, we did go to church all the time. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself that if there was one pill and it could make you straight and it cost $1 million, I would beg, borrow, steal. I would do whatever it took to get that $1 million, to get that pill, because I wanted to change, because I did not want to be different. I did not want to be gay. Because I wanted to be like everybody else. Since that didn't happen, I ended up becoming this hyper masculine guy, because I remember hearing what I did hear about gays from family or friends is, they were pansies, they were soft, they didn't use the word soft, they used the word fairies, and always like they were weak and lisping and, and bent wrists and stuff. And I was like, I'll be goddamned if anyone's ever going to call me that. And so I went out of my way to make sure I was never those things. And I went overboard with it. I mean, to where if you looked at me wrong, we were going to fight, because I had to prove myself. Now, you may not have any idea I'm gay, but in my head, you're challenging me because you think I'm gay. That's how I looked at it. And because I remember sitting there vividly telling myself, no, first off, no one's ever going to know I'm gay, because I'm never coming out of the closet. But if by any chance someone finds out, they're never going to sit there and call me a fag and get away with it. I will beat their ass. And that's why I became the person I am today. Unfortunately, I let that continue in my life long after it should have ended. It wasn't something that I just got over. And so it's only been recently where I still have challenges with it, but I handle it a lot better than I used to. Where a guy my age shouldn't be ready to, fight at the drop of a hat, not because I can't, but because I should be mature enough to go, yeah, you're an idiot, But instead, I'd sit there and go, you're an idiot who's going to get his ass beat. So it's affected my life, obviously, in that way. When I finally came out, it was right before I met Cary. Yeah. I was either 39 or just turned 40. And as I said, I felt like the weight of the world was lifted off of my shoulders. I'd been carrying this weight around all my life. And whether it's self-imposed or not, you're not aware of that. Because being younger, I knew what was expected of me. And I knew all these people who were in my church who looked up to me. And I remember thinking, I'm a fraud. If these people knew what I really was, they wouldn't think so highly of me. And it would crash their world in.
I got a question. So what was it that made you just choose that particular time in your life to
There's
come
some events that happened at that point that I just, there was no turning back. There wasn't how can I put this? I could have denied things. I could have denied being gay. I got caught and yet I could have denied it, in fact I did. And people were so willing to believe it. They wanted to believe it. And I thought to myself, I cannot believe how easily these people are just believing what I'm telling them. And I met my very first boyfriend. And oddly enough, I met him in a restroom, cruising a restroom, because that's what you did when you were my age. You cruised restrooms because that's the only place you could feel comfortable meeting people, knowing that that if they were in there, they were in there for the same reason you were in there. And so you weren't going to make a mistake of going, hey, my name's Kurt. How would you like to go out sometime? And they go, I'm straight. What are you doing? So you have to be concerned with that. This guy was the first one and I didn't make a habit out of dating people I cruised in the restaurant. He was the very first person I ever did. Yeah, really. I know. I swear it's true. But he actually got me to come out of the closet, and he's the one who convinced me it's time to come out. So I was back in, setting up this whole bullshit, scene for everybody so that they would just dismiss it. And he's the one who convinced me to come out. And so I chose to come out. As it's funny because those same people who were willing to accept the fact that I said I was straight and that this was just, a mistake or whatever, when I came out, they just couldn't believe it. In fact, they had such a difficult time. And what made me decide to finally come out is that I had made a couple of things. I'm that kind of person that when I decide to do something, I'm going to do it all the way, or I'm not going to do it at all. And so I said, you know what? The reason why people in my age group didn't come out, some of them were worried about getting beat up. That wasn't my thing. I didn't give a shit because I was like, I'll fight the world. I don't give a damn about that. What I gave a damn about was losing the people in my life that I loved. And at some point I realized that if I lose anybody for coming out, then they didn't truly love me. And I was like, and that's half-ass love. And I don't want or need half-ass love from anybody. And I don't care about it. So if I lose them, they never loved me, or they were never friends of mine. And I lost a lot of people, including brothers. And, it was so funny because I had my sister tell me a story about my brother who's next to the oldest. I'm the oldest. Saying something about kicking my ass, and I was like, not in his. What all of a sudden, like he knows the fights that we got into, I would just demolish him within like less than 30 seconds, and I would never hurt him to where because he was my brother, but he knows I could crush him if I wanted to. And all of a sudden, because I'm gay, now he thinks he can whoop my ass, and I'm like, I don't know why you think all of a sudden like did you really believe those things that you said about gay people being fairies and pansies, and that there's they're just limp wrists, lispers. I was like. And so I told my sister, I told her to relay a message. I don't know if she ever did or not, but I've not spoken to my brothers. And my father was so concerned about people knowing that I was gay because he was afraid that they would think he was gay. So
I think there's a lot of that because I think people want to, and maybe that's some of the part where like our mothers maybe went a little crazy at the time because it's maybe this like feeling that it's like something they did wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly, and that's the thing. So my father was the kind of person, he's like, well, this isn't on me.
Right.
And I was
and
like,
they don't want people
what's
to
not
think
on
that
you?
It's something that they did
right.
as a parent
exactly.
to make you that way.
Well, you think about how it's been treated. Like everyone in society, like up until a certain, like, well, in that time period, like it had treated it as something that was wrong.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's something that was wrong, then obviously the parents did something wrong to the child to make it in that way.
And that's where he said, this is not my fault. And I said to him, when I came out to him, I go, I'm not blaming you for anything. I'm not giving you credit for anything either. I go, there's nothing wrong with me being gay because at this point I accepted who I was. But the fact that he thought that this was a flaw of some sort, and until the day he died, I didn't go to his funeral. And the funny thing is like I have no remorse for not going to his funeral, but I never hated the man, and I don't. And this is what I wanted to tell you too. Is that I realized my father didn't do the best he could because he never did the best he could. He was too lazy to try to be a better person. He did the best that he would allow himself to do. And so he didn't, he was the kind of father, he never beat you. He wasn't an abusive physical father. He was abusive mentally. He wasn't an alcoholic. He would go, he went to work and stuff. He'd provide for a house, and food and stuff. But he thought that's what a father's supposed to do. That's what a husband does. I don't need to do anything more than that. I give you food. I give you a shelter. Love is, if you want love, you had to beg him for it. You had to go to him. He never came to you.
But was he that way with your sisters?
He was to an extent. With my oldest sister, no. there was something he had he had a relationship with my older sister that he just loved her to death. But when she married a black man, that was a no. In fact, he didn't go to the wedding. My brother and I had to walk her down the aisle. Now he came around, and so that's what I'm saying. It's like, he finally came around because he doted on those grandchildren, even though they were, they weren't black, but they were definitely, because her husband wasn't. He was Haitian. Oh. And so they weren't black, even though there were a lot of Haitians that are really dark black. They weren't. They were light skinned children. So he loved these children. I was like, holy shit! If he'd have been that kind of father to us that he used to a grandfather to them, we would have been doing okay.
Grandchildren really soften people,
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
So in that respect, he kind of redeemed himself. As far as it went with me, he never redeemed himself. But I still don't harbor hard feelings against him. I feel, if anything, bad that he didn't have the ability to better himself, to be the kind of father that he probably could have been. But then I look at his father, who when I was a kid, I thought my grandfather was the greatest. It wasn't until, and then I realized as an adult, he never called. And now I know why my father was like that, because he never called. You had to call him if you wanted anything. And when my daughter was born, I called him to say, hey, you have a great grandchild. He picks up the phone and I go, hey, Grandpa, this is Kurt. And he's like, what do you want? And I was like, what? I said,
okay.
I was like, I just want to tell you you had a great granddaughter, but hey, don't let me bother you. I was done with him and then I saw exactly why my father was the way he was. Because as a grandchild, when you're a kid, you don't see your grandfather in that light, because you're not an adult. You only see him as the guy who dotes on you. And just like my sister's kids saw my father as the loving grandfather, they don't know that, he wasn't that person his whole life. And he wasn't that way with everybody. So
my grandmother's doted on me my entire life.
Yeah, and your grandmother loves you to death. There's absolutely no two ways about that. She loves him to death,
and I love her to death.
Yes, and she's a great woman. I have a lot of respect for her.
I look up to her a lot.
So when I came out of the closet, it was much, much, much later. But when I did come out, I made the commitment that I was going to be who I was. And I remember particularly walking around Lake Eola, and I remember thinking to myself, because I had a lot of friends who, from my first boyfriend, he had a lot of friends, and I remember we'd go out to like a Thai restaurant, and after we got done eating Thai, they go, do you want to meet at Pizza Hut in a couple hours? And I'm looking at him like, we just ate. What the hell are you guys talking about?
Oh, Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut met Parliament House, PH. And I had no idea. And I was like, and so when...
I learned something today.
Yeah, and so I said to my boyfriend at the time, I said, why don't you just say, I go, why don't you guys just say Parliament House? And they're like, they were looking around to see who the hell heard. And I go, wait a minute. You told me to come out of the closet, and you guys are hiding this. And they're like,
generational shock right now.
Well, they were hiding it because they were afraid of getting beat up. And that was the thing. Then I found out my first boyfriend only had half a foot out of the closet, because while he was out to his friends and some people at work, he wasn't out to everyone at work, and he wasn't out to his family at all. Now, as I'm sure you've met these people, where in their family, everyone knows he's gay. It's just not spoken about.
Right.
So,
well, he was Latin, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was Colombian, and so you see a lot of that. But I had made the decision that if I had a girlfriend or a wife, and I was walking around Lake Eola, and if I was going to hold her hand, then if I had a boyfriend, I was going to hold his hand. I wasn't going to do anything differently just because he was a male, and so I wouldn't. And the funny thing is, when Cary and I would date, you wouldn't, I never heard anything from anybody unless they were 100 yards away.
They would always like scream it.
Yeah.
Like far away. Fags.
Right.
And then they run.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say? Come here a little closer. But they never would. And so, that was my experience of coming out. And I can tell you that while I had that experience, as a boomer, I can tell you there are still kids who are having those experiences today and having your experiences who do live in these states, like the Midwest states in particular, and these areas that we tend to forget. We live in this little bubble. When you live in a major city like Orlando or New York or San Francisco or LA or wherever, you tend to have a support system there because because it tends to be more progressive and people tend to be more accepting.
Right.
But in the Midwest, it's still like caveman days.
It's still
there.
bad.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. So it
I will say it. Believe me, like I said, I've got a lot of nieces and nephews. You'll be surprised. Like I was talking to my oldest stepbrother. I was talking to Tiffany, to my youngest sister, about my oldest stepbrother's kids, and one of them is in high school, and they've got a gay student gay straight student
Oh yeah,
alliance
things have changed
in the Midwest.
Yeah,
I was like, I had to drive an hour and a half to go to PFLAG, and they've got one in their school.
Yeah, my school didn't have one when I was going there, but as I understand it, I heard that they have something like that now on campus. That's not, and that's something that, I mean, years ago that was unheard of. Things have changed a lot.
I didn't get into my first gay student union thing until I went to UCF.
Well, and it's good to see that kind of progress being made, and even in this country, we've seen progress with gay marriage being allowed. Of course, we still have a lot of work to do, and we still don't have equal rights, and we need to keep furthering the cause so that we gain those rights at some point. But it is nice to see this progress, because even as we speak, there are countries where you're still killed, will be executed for being gay. Mm-hmm. There are still countries where it's not legal to get married, and there's still countries, especially, these male-dominated, I should say all societies are male-dominated as far as their systems are set up, their masculine systems, but like my boyfriend who's from Taiwan, it's very much still, even though they have gay marriage, it's still very much frowned upon. Like his parents reacted the same way your parents reacted to you. And my mother, and I want to just add this. I loved my mother dearly. And to me, she was the greatest mom in the world. And I remember when I came out, nobody knew I was gay. And I now tell that story differently. There was one person who knew I was gay, and it was my mother. I know she knew. And because I reflect back on the things that she said to me, and she was always supportive, but she never wanted to come out and be the one who asked me, because she knew, one, I would deny it, and she didn't want to embarrass me. And so unfortunately, she passed away before I came out. But I wish I had, because I know I remember saying things to her, and she going, I know, honey. She was just like, she was just the most supportive person you could ever ask for. And so while I had a father who wasn't supportive at all, with anything for that matter, he's like, why do you want to go to college? You think you're better than me? It's like, okay, no, forgive me for wanting to be better, but my mother was the exact opposite. So I was extremely blessed with a great mother. And if I have any good in me whatsoever, it came from her. And it's not to say that my father didn't contribute. There are certain things I have from my father that, that I give him credit for. I don't ever panic under high pressure situations ever. Nothing bothers me. Nothing scares me. And that came from him. I never seen a person more calm, cool, and collected in my life than him. But the love stuff, that came from my mother. So, do you have any advice? I'll go to each one of you. Do you have any advice for young kids that are out there who haven't come out yet and might be facing a situation similar to yours, even though, we're coming into 2021. As we said, there's, there's more opportunities out there. There's more resources out there now, but, that's a scary time when you're 16, 18 years old and you're still depending on your parents to, for your shelter and stuff and for school and all that, and to have to deal with that. Let's start with you, Robbie. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, I don't know if I have any advice other than just saying it gets better. This too shall pass. There's a lot. I mean, it can be tough. Like if you come out in a situation like we did, and I don't know what to say other than it's gonna be tough, and you just have to tough it out. It does get better, but I mean, you have to live your life. It's your life. You have to live your life, and you have to be happy for you, and not live your life for your parents.
Yeah, because you'll never be happy if you live it for someone else.
No,
right?
Exactly.
And Cary, what about you?
Well, if anything, like I would say, definitely educate yourself. If you think that you may be gay or any other way that is not straight, educate yourself. Deal with it, because if you just hold it up and keep it inside of you, you're just going to hurt yourself. You may hurt others later on, and that's not healthy. That's not going to make you a happy person. Making you dealing with the issue as soon as possible is what's going to make you a happy person. Because it is as unperfect as like my coming out story can be, but very similar to a lot of gay people's. I'm very glad that I did it at the age I did, because I've had a very nice, long adult life of knowing who I am, and I can't imagine like how hard it was for you, Kurt. I mean, you came out much later than I, and I think it's important. People have to deal with what's going on inside, and not just hide it.
And to further, like what you said about education, the resources are and we're living in a world now where those are a lot more available. They're not like what you said, where you were having to go to the library and dig through card catalogs and have to like research it like that to figure out yourself.
The internet's right there.
Yeah, exactly. The internet is so much more accessible for so many more people. Now, granted, maybe not so much for everyone in the Midwest, like in
right.
The flyover states, but. I mean, it's if you can get a hold of it, it's.
But there's still libraries out there.
Yeah,
but I was just going to say I didn't mean to laugh, but I couldn't help but think that there's going to be some people listening going, "What's a card catalog?" It's like you're old.
I am.
I had someone the other day say to me, ask me if I knew what a card catalog was.
Yeah, but I told you look so young. I had no idea you're as old as you are. I was like, Jesus Christ, this kid.
Well, I'm a disco baby. Like, I was born in the late 70s.
Gloria Gaynor. If I had any advice, it would be come out when you're ready to come out. Don't let anyone force you out, and don't. I wish I had the courage to come out earlier, because sometimes I feel like. For this tough guy that I say that, that I was a coward for not coming out. And I wish I would have had the inner strength to come out back then, even though I know it wasn't prevalent. It wasn't something that happened often. I still hold myself accountable for that and going, if I had come out earlier, my life would have been different than it is today. I'm not necessarily saying it would have been better or worse or whatever. In fact, I keep saying it's a good thing I probably didn't come out, because during the AIDS epidemic, I was a whore. I have no doubt I would have died, seriously. And I'm not saying people who died from AIDS were whores. I'm saying I would have gotten. I have no doubt about it, because I wasn't even out, and I was still doing things. It was relatively safe because it was mostly guys who were in the closet, and we weren't out at the clubs and doing things. So. It was all cruising public restrooms and And one of the things I want to make point is when I had Anthony Patrick Hello on, who does the podcast All the Boys, and we talked about how society tried to shame gay people for cruising the bathrooms and stuff, and it's like, but you didn't leave us anywhere to go. You were raiding the bars constantly. And you were always trying to find a reason to arrest them for immoral charges, but you weren't allowed to meet anywhere. You weren't allowed to be gay. It was illegal. All even any gay act that you did was illegal. You couldn't be together. You and I couldn't go into my bedroom and have sex because that was illegal.
Exactly.
Well, I think they were even raiding like house parties. Like if people
they
were just
did.
having get-togethers.
Yeah, and they would just go under the guise, oh, we heard someone scream, and so we broke the door down because we heard someone, it sounded like someone was in danger or some nonsense like that. And so, again, society bears a great deal of responsibility for anything that happens, and gay men shouldn't have been shamed, and they shouldn't feel any shame for the behavior, because it was the only thing they were relegated to, that because there was nothing else for them. You didn't have Grindr. You didn't have Adam for Adam or all the other million different apps out there now that you have. There just wasn't any of that.
No, even if the apps existed at the time, they wouldn't have been. It wasn't accepted. Like
right.
I mean, it wasn't
because
something
you would have been set up. I guarantee. And I think we saw some of that on not the apps themselves, but on Craigslist, where the gay meetups that some of these guys would go out and meet up who was ever on the other line, and who put the ad up or whatever, and got beat up because they were gay. They just wanted to beat them up. And, and so gay people have had to go through that. And the only reason they were going to get beat up is because they loved, because they were gay, because they were attracted to the same sex. That was the only reason. Not because they were bad people, not because they did bad things, but because they were attracted to the same sex. So that was a reason to beat them up. I mean, you look at, to this day, I remember what happened to Matthew Shepard because it happened right when I came out, and I had written a poem which I've never shown to anyone. I never even told anyone to this moment right now. I'd written a poem that I wish I could have been his hero, because to me he was a hero, because he was somebody who was killed just simply because he was gay. And it's so hard to fathom that people have that kind of hatred towards somebody simply because of who they're attracted to, not because of their character, not because of anything they did, but because they're attracted to the same sex. That's a reason to kill somebody. That's like, what's wrong with this world, And I know that I have. When I've never been able to say I was part of the, what was that group that's No Hate or whatever it was? Do you remember the group I was talking about that, it was something anti-hate group that they had T-shirts out that were like.
Was it the fuck hate group?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that blunt. It was
well, they would have just put FCK hate. Yeah.
No, but it was like No Hate.
There was No Hate too. NOH8. Yeah, No Hate.
Yeah, that's it. It was. That was the
Okay.
one. And I was like, I can't be part of that because I do have hate, and I don't have any problem with hating people who hate others and want to do harm to others just because of who they love or because of who they're attracted to. I'm sorry, but I would be a fraud if I were to join that group, and I won't do that. And so while I respect those people, I'm not a pacifist. I'm not somebody who sit there and let you smack me in the face and go, oh, thanks, went the other side? No, I'm not giving you the other side. And
I think a lot of that is just like ignorance and like people just not wanting to be educated or even get to know people that are gay. But it's really interesting because I've been out as my whole career, and it's interesting getting to know people and how they change by knowing you and by being like a healthy out individual. Because I've had people come up to me that I would have never guessed that they felt changed by meeting me and by respecting the healthy way that I portrayed myself, or like I projected myself. And that's a real compliment coming from like all the craziness that from the beginning. But
that's just it. It's like, when people have a chance to get to know you first, and that just reminded me of the story of Luke. When I first moved to Orlando, I met this guy, and he's younger. I thought he was good looking. Obviously, he was so good looking. Everybody wanted him, like everybody. I got to know him as a friend, and so we became friends, and we became workout partners. And then he asked me to move in with him, which I was like, because I really enjoyed my own place. But he'd bought a house and he needed some help with the mortgage and stuff. And so I said, he was making a decision. He had gotten a job opportunity to go out to Texas, and he goes, I'm really thinking about staying here and not accepting it because I just met my girlfriend, who he ended up marrying, who was a friend of his, which it was such a strange story. Like him and my friend's girlfriend knew each other.
We worked together,
but Luke and I were friends, and and I didn't know his girl. It was really weird how this all came out. But anyway, he was telling me that he was really thinking about not taking the job and staying here because he met this girl, and he formed this friendship with me and stuff. And I was like, I need you to, I need him to know, because I'd started seeing a couple guys that were out at the clubs in the gym, and I already knew if he was with me, they were going to think he was gay and that he was with me, and I didn't want somehow it getting around that someone tried to hit on him and go, well, aren't you gay because your partner's gay? Or it's like, and so I figured I need to be the one to tell him. So the biggest cliche is that him and I said, let's go to dinner one night. So we go to, of all places, Olive Garden, which was like, back then, that was where the gay people went for dinner at night.
Really?
I doubt that now.
No, it isn't now. In fact, if you look at the early Will and Grace, that's what it was a joke. It was a running joke that gay men always went to Olive Garden.
I never watched Will and Grace, but on Gen X, it's kind of strange.
So anyway, so we're sitting down, and so Luke, being who he is and just very direct, he's like, all right, so what's your big fucking secret? And I was like, all right, well, here it is. And Luke and I had this kind of relationship where we're like two dudes, that's it. I'm like, he'll say something like, you want some water? Fuck yeah, I want some water. What do you think I'm going to fucking die of thirst? I'd say something like that. And that's how we talked. In fact, him and Luke's girlfriend thought we were mad at each other one time because we were saying the fuck word all the time. And we go, that's just how we communicate. So anyhow, he's like, all right, well, what's your big fucking secret? And I go, oh, look, I know you tell me you're thinking about taking, turning down this job and staying here. And part of it was you mentioned that, my friendship. And I said, we've been working out in the gym, and I just think it's fair that I tell you that I'm gay. And he looks at me and he's like, get the fuck out. He goes, what do you want to tell me? And I go, dude, I'm telling you, I'm gay. And he looks at me and goes, he had this stunned look on his face, and he goes, well, I'm straight, right? And I go, shut the fuck up. And from that moment on, he goes, I don't give a fuck. And he never had a problem with it. In fact, we'd go out and shoot pool. And he always wondered, like, this was before he met Cary. And he always wanted to know what kind of guy I liked. And one night we were out shooting pool because, you go out shooting pool, you don't see twinks very often. You just don't see them in pool halls. And so one night there was this twink looking guy in the pool hall. And I go, Luke, come here. And I said, you see that guy there? And he goes, yeah. I go, you've been wanting to know what kind of guy I like? I go, that guy right there. And he turns to me, he goes, straight face, he goes, what the fuck's wrong with me? But that's how cool.
Knowing Luke, he'd probably been hit on before.
Oh yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, but the reason why he didn't have a problem, and he said that, is because he got to know me first. He got to know who I was, and there was none of this preconceived notion of what he
That
thought
you were
I
after
should be.
something else.
Right. And that's the other thing too. One of the things that pisses me off about some gay people who do this, and a lot of older gay guys do this, is they play this little game of innocence, and like they're pretending that they're not trying to get into the guy's pants, but they are trying to get in the guy's pants, and so it really makes straight guys feel uncomfortable. And I go, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to go out of your way to make them feel uncomfortable? Because you think they make you feel uncomfortable? Is that...
Yeah, it's just, if they're straight, they're off limits. Just don't...
Exactly.
I mean, that's seriously... Like, why is that automatically not a turn off? 'Cause for me, it is. Like,
it is,
like,
right. I agree.
I'm like, oh, well, they're not into me.
Well, we're done talking then.
See, I'm the same way, but for a lot of gay guys, that's such a turn on for them. And I'm like, look, I'm going to tell you something.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is like, okay, so if there were a quote unquote straight guy or whatever that is actually like so interested that they're talking to you and stuff, I tend to think that they're closeted people.
Right.
And,
That's my...
But some gay people, for some reason,
they want to believe this. They want to believe this fantasy, and you'll still hear it to this day. It's like, no, he was really straight.
Yeah,
no, he
okay,
wasn't.
whatever.
If he's sucking your dick, he's not straight. I'm sorry. I know there are some straight guys that will let you suck their dick.
Yeah, exactly.
But most of them are in prison. And it's only because they can't get to any pussy. That's why, so.
Yeah.
But
it's just that, I mean, like, he might not be gay, but he's he's not straight. If he's
exactly. Because
at the very least bi-curious.
Yeah, he's somewhere in the middle there for sure, at least.
Yeah. So, with my boyfriend being the age he is, he's still, because like I said, he's from Taiwan. He's going very much through the same thing that you guys have gone through, and now, while he had it out with his mother about being gay, he left the house. Well, fortunately, his father is a very understanding man, a very loving man, and so he had to leave the house for, I think it was close to a week, and his mother kept trying to make it more and more impossible to where he would have to come home because she wanted him to come home under her conditions, and he wouldn't do it. So finally, she gave in. And so, but now it's like, it's not talked about. And she's still trying to pretend like he's not gay. It's like, that sort of thing. And so right now he's finishing up in his last year of college, and he'll be done here in another semester. But it's like, I want to tell parents that are out there, you're doing irreparable harm to your child.
Agreed.
And the thing is that you're responsible for this. You're the adult, and you're supposed to love your child no matter what. That's your fucking child.
Well, I think the horrible thing is that whenever you are a child, your parents basically are telling you this. I will love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And then the rug gets pulled out from underneath of you, and that's where the damage is done.
Mm-hmm. Here's
exactly.
I can tell you this. I have a daughter and a son, and I love them to death. Now, I will not put up with their nonsense, but I will always love them. And I've told them this much. I go, look, you want to act or behave a certain way, that's on you. I'm not going to tolerate it. I will always be here. I will always love you, and I will always be here for you when you decide to quit acting the fool. But that love doesn't change, just because of the way they behave. If God forbid one of my kids were to commit murder, I would hate that act that they did, but I would never hate them. I couldn't hate them. I always love them. I will always support them, and I'll always be there for them. But I will always, just like I want people who love me to do the same damn thing, hold me accountable. I expect more out of them. I want to sit there and let them know, I expect more from you because I know you have it in you. I want the people who love me. And that's, Jordan Peterson said this one time. He goes, the people who love you aren't the ones who make your life easy. They're the ones who make it hard because they want better for you. Those are the people who really love you. There's so many fake-ass people out there who pretend to love you, but they don't want you doing better because then you make them look bad because they haven't done better.
Right.
And so they don't have your best interest at heart. The ones who have your best interest at heart are the ones who will push you and want and actually really truly want better for you. And so I've always kept that in mind in who I allow into my life.
I think that's why we've been friends for so long. I think we push each other, and it's because we want better for each other. Because I mean, I see in Kurt is a very important person in my life. So he's always been my best friend. So
Ditto kiddo. Yes.
I know a lot of people find it strange, but it's not strange to me.
No, that's another thing too. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but Cary and I, obviously, like we said, we dated for a long ass time too. We were together for 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah. So I mean, that's no small little relationship.
No, in 8 years, that's like 3 times. That's like 24 years.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but we really are just friends, and we still have friends today who swear we're having sex, and we go, no, we have never had sex, never, and we're not going to, because first off, we would never ruin a friendship that is greater than our relationship, and we had a good relationship, but we have a much better friendship, and that says a lot.
Yeah.
It really says a lot. But you would find, like, he has more of a problem, because I always tell people right up front, because I always date younger. I go, look, he's my friend. He's not going anywhere. If you have a problem with that, this isn't going to work. Because
I think a lot of guys are intimidated by Kurt. So
I don't understand. Well, I mean, you get to know him. He's a big teddy bear. I
don't know about that. But.
He is. No, he gives me the warm and he gave me the warm and fuzzies. Okay, and when I met you at Savoy, he gave me the warm and fuzzies. And I'm gonna tell you what, not a lot of people give me the warm and fuzzies when I'm at Savoy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's because I wasn't trying to stick a dollar bill up your ass. That's like they do. I'm sorry, those cheap bastards. I want to go home and fucking.
They do that.
Yeah, I go. You
try. My hands are faster.
Yeah. Well, this is what I loved about Robbie, is that Robbie was so good at making everyone feel special. I would sit there and watch him, and I'd go, that kid's a master at what he does. Like, he really can handle these guys. Like, they all think they're going to go home with him, but they're not. And they'll come back next week thinking they're going to go home with him, but they're not. So
that's definitely a skill.
But he wasn't disingenuine. Like, he was genuinely nice to everyone, and that's why he's so good at what he does. I mean, in every area. But when he was a dancer, he was the best, because he just knew how to be nice to people. And when you're nice to people, even the jerkiest jerks out there, have to respect that. So
yeah, they're there to have a good time.
Yeah, but not to molest the dancers. It's like if you're that, I like this one little guy. I watched him try to do this to a dancer one night, and he was trying to stick his finger in his hole, and with a dollar bill, and I go, dude, at least fucking put a 20 up there. Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Cheap bastard.
You cheap asshole.
I tell my dancers, like, well, I mean, I've said this before to them. I'm like, if someone is getting too handsy with you and they're not, and you tell them to back off and they don't, I don't care if you deck them after that. It's okay. I will defend you. Like, yeah. It's, and I've told, because I'm managing them now, so it's like,
right. Yeah.
And I've told them, I was like, if they get too handsy and you tell them not to and they keep going, just deck them. Yeah. I will defend you.
For the guys at Savoy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you don't have to deal with that. That's
no one should have to deal with that. And
they have cute guys there.
I haven't been there in a long time, but that was always one of my favorite places to go. Of course, that's when they had the pool table too, and I used to love.
It's probably the best place in town now.
They still have the pool table.
Do they?
Yeah, it's still there.
Well, they had 2 of them.
Now they have the one.
Well,
the
they have
other
the one
show bar,
in,
isn't it?
Yeah, well, they have the show bar one, but I think they have one in the craft bar too now, because they have a craft bar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so they have 2 pool tables still. So they have one in the craft bar and one in the main bar.
Here's what happens, and now I'm going to offend the lesbians, because the lesbians would always run the table, but I was one of the few gay guys who could beat lesbians, and they would hate when I win the table from them. So when you only have one table, of course everybody's waiting to get on the table. Well, I would run the table for a long time, and I had a partner who I showed him how to play pool, and he picked it up pretty damn quick too. He got pretty good at it pretty fast. Too bad he wasn't good at other things, but no. Anyway, guys,
that one.
Yes, that one. But that bitch was cute as hell, though. I know you didn't like him. I don't think you ever liked any of my boyfriends.
Trying to think.
Yeah, I don't think you did. I only liked one of yours, so I don't care.
I don't know.
Because
it's like when somebody's like dating, like I just imagine like if I like my sister would be dating something, I'm extremely judgmental of who she's dating because I'm like,
it's
I
not
want
because
the best for her.
It's not because you're jealous. It's because you care about the person. Like and that's why I only liked one of them that you dated, because it's like I know that guy was like, the world revolved around Cary. I was like, that's the guy you need right there, because he's gonna do everything for you. So
as long as he didn't drive me off the road.
Yeah, because he couldn't drive worth a damn. But he was one of those guys who'd be like talking to you while he's driving down the road. He's like
up on the curb. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die.
But anyway, so yeah. Good times. Well, guys, I really appreciate you telling your stories. I know that they'll help people who, if there's some people out there, especially young people out there listening, that our experiences can help lead them down the right path. I will say this: you said it gets better. I will say this: it doesn't always get better, but what happens is you get better. Mm-hmm. And because you get better, you can handle situations much better than you did when you were younger, and that will get better. So just hang in there. And of course, if you need help, there are organizations out there. I know here in Orlando we have the Zebra Coalition. Mm-hmm. There's
PFLAG is also here.
One that helped me when I was a teenager, it was actually youthguard.org lists. So like they were email lists, but we talked about a lot of like LGBT subject on there. Like, I mean, it dealt with like a lot of people who were just finding this out about themselves and learning how to cope with it and eventually, make the step to come out if they want to. That was something that really helped me when I was younger, was youthguard.org. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what we'll do is for this podcast, I'll go ahead and I'll put some of the links down below for those organizations that do help those who are in need of help, if they're kicked out of their homes or need someone to talk to or whatever, so that you'll have some numbers and some websites you can go to and receive the help that you need. So, and I hope that you'll take advantage of those things. So, guys, thank you so much for. It's no little task to put your life out there and bear yourself like that.
This is the most candid I've ever been about this subject. So,
well,
you got a lot out of me.
I really appreciate it, and I know the listeners and the viewers will appreciate the honesty and the genuineness, because that makes all the difference in the world. So thank you. So all right, well, with that, friends, thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care, be safe, and wear your mask.